Zionism has been a massive political force in the last 100 years. But something very interesting is happening. Zionism is getting exposed. And that's because Zionism's time is up. It's time for Zionism to go from dark to light. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is the Dance of Life podcast, and I'm your host, as always, Tudor Alexander. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really enjoy doing these episodes, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you like this, and do so on my website. That is the best way to stay in touch. But today is a very important episode on Zionism because it will probably be my last one on this topic. And that's because you'll soon see why I say that, because ultimately Zionism is coming to an end. And that's a very important thing because today you're going to learn very crucial information about Zionism. And also, even more importantly, Zionism's destination, Zionism's future, which is right on the horizon. Now, unlike most of my videos, this is not going to be a beginner topic. Most of my videos, I try my best really to make them comprehensive, even though they're usually part of other things like a series or maybe a group of videos like the Dark to Light series, not a series, but Dark to Light, playlist or whatever. This is one of those things where you will need some knowledge. You're going to need some knowledge because it's not a beginner topic. What do I mean by that? Well, you'll basically need some context. Things like general history, understanding the general history of Zionism, how did it come about, understanding Zionism's Jesuit origins and what the connection is there. You have to understand basically what really happened in World War II, what actually happened and how that was spun in different ways, and I'll just leave it at that. You have to understand the purpose of Zionism from the beast's perspective. That assumes you know who the beast is. And you have to know the truth about the end times, i.e. not be a dispensationalist or a Christian Zionist. Now, if you're a Christian Zionist watching this, then I congratulate you because most people would have probably not even clicked on it. But either way, I hope you'll learn something new today. All of these things I just listed are very important because we're going to be talking about the future of Zionism, which again is very much on the horizon for this thing to come to an end. And what is that destination? Well, I'm glad you asked. That destination is Catholicism. If you couldn't tell from the thumbnail of this video, that destination is Catholicism, Christian nationalism, and it will be, who knows what it's going to be called, but it's going to be the world marveling after the beast. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So again, one more time, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you like this, make sure you like it. If you want to support me, by the way, the only way that I ever plan on making money from this is through my website. YouTube for me is nice, but I don't trust YouTube. I really don't. They could just flip the kill switch at any point in time. So for me, YouTube is YouTube. It's there to spread the message. But if you want to support me, go on my website. I don't ever plan on selling gimmicks, gold, Roth IRAs, or whatever people sell these days, carbon 60. I don't plan on ever doing that. I don't interrupt my videos with gimmicks. And I don't ever plan on doing that. Obviously, YouTube will interrupt you because they're, frothing at the mouth for ads. But if you want to watch ad-free, go on my website. There's no timestamps yet on their video on Substack's videos platform, but I'm sure they'll add it eventually. Nonetheless, if you want to watch ad-free, if you want to support me, then just be a member on my website. You get a ton of free stuff, a lot of great perks. You get to have a search engine for all of my content, which you don't have on YouTube, by the way. So that's something interesting, and you can reference everything I've ever made. So if you want to do that, make sure you check out my website because there's going to be much more important videos coming in the future. I'm finishing up certain topics like Zionism. I don't intend on covering this anymore, and today will be very good. It'll be very comprehensive. But I'm doing this so that I can move on to other things, and ultimately all the things I have created will be very good resources for you because you don't need somebody covering Zionism every single day. You need to understand that everything is a pattern. The Bible has already told you how this ends, and we're going to be looking at that today, but everything is a pattern. And if you understand how to read the patterns that ultimately lead to what the Bible's told you, that's my goal. My goal is not to cover Zionism or all the dirty tricks that Israel, the state of Israel is doing and all this other stuff. Those are important to an extent. What is the path? Where does it lead? And that's the most important part. But anyway, some important context now to really hit this home. I'm going to assume you know some of the stuff that I mentioned previously as context. If you don't, or if all of this is new to you, I'm going to encourage you to watch my Zionism/dispensationalism playlist. There's a lot of great deprogramming videos there, resources to help your Zionist friends and dispensationalist friends come out of this great delusion. There's over 10 videos in that, including my documentary on why the Jews are not God's chosen people. Watch the Great Delusion series that I recently released, especially part 10, where we talk about Zionism in quite good depth there. Islam too, I think that's part 9. Those are very important. Watch my Dark to Light playlist. Now I've recently created a playlist for all these Dark to Light episodes, which again, it's not really a series, but it's just kind of like a grouping of themed episodes to help you realize this dialectic that everybody's caught in, dark to light, left to right, communism to Christian nationalism, Zionism to Catholicism, which hopefully you'll see today. Watch my Christian nationalism playlist, watch my End Time series so that you have a solid foundation in Bible prophecy. It's a lot of episodes, but look, just make a plan. People listen to stuff every day. You have to just make a plan and listen to it. When I had to do timestamps, I went back and put timestamps in all of those episodes so that it would be more convenient for people to listen. If they want to skip the intro, you can skip the intro. You can watch 2 times the speed on YouTube. I did that. I watched all of my content, practically all the episodes, except the ones that I redid, like the French Revolution, Revelation 20, and obviously the Adventism episode. But the rest of the episodes is like 20 plus hours of content. I watched that in like 5 weeks while I was still making content, hours and hours of content every week and working, full time at what I do. So if I can make a plan to watch 20 plus hours of content in a month, that's a lot. Do you know how many hours it took me to put that series together? Hundreds of hours. Again, I'm not patting myself on the back, but just realize that if you want to do something and you set your mind to it and you're systematized about it and you make a plan, you can learn anything you want. My encouragement to you is to take advantage of your resources. There's so many resources. There's no excuse not to learn these days. The Bible said knowledge will increase and many will run to and fro in Daniel 12. So be part of that and learn. This is the time to learn. We have an immense blessing with the internet and our technology to be able to gather knowledge. And of course, there's a lot of deception too, but nonetheless, there's a lot of knowledge. One more series too that I recommend is my Sabbath series. Don't be stubborn. Watch and learn your history, learn the evidence, learn the trajectory of all these things are going, because all of this is going to be tied into today's episode, and it will also be very relevant to the next coming months and years. Now, I want to extract 2 very important contextual points from Revelation 13. This is just 2 verses really, and there's a lot to talk about. 13 verse 2 and 13 verse 3. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. So it's a conglomerate of all the beasts that Daniel saw. But this is more what I wanted to look at. And to it the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. Verse 3, one of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound. This has already happened. But its mortal wound was healed. This is happening. And the whole earth, entirety. I'm going to sneeze. All right. Well, I just had a nice little sneeze attack. Phoenix is so dusty. I'm telling you, it's just so much dust here. Even with an air purifier in my room, it's just, you can't get away from the dust. But anyway, what was I saying? The whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. Now, of course, again, I'm assuming you know who the beast is. It's the Catholic papacy. And if you don't agree with that, if you don't know that, then watch my End Time series. There are mountains and mountains of evidence there for you. But 2 very important points to extract from these just 2 verses. The first point is this: out of all of the satanic vehicles on the earth, We're talking Zionism, communism, Gnosticism, New Age, Satanism, you name it. There are dozens of satanic threads and vehicles that the devil has used both on the dark side and on the light side for his various purposes. What the Bible is telling you here is a profound revelation so that you do not get lost in the storm that the devil has created with all these various opposing parties, seemingly opposing. The Bible tells you very plainly that out of all of the satanic vehicles that Satan could have chosen, he chose the Catholic Church, and the papacy specifically, as the seat of his power where all of these things will be integrated in the church age. Yes, there are a lot of satanic vehicles. Zionism is antichrist. It's satanic. New Age is satanic. They're both working for the same boss. But out of all of these, Satan is limited in time and space, folks. The devil will be worshipped. And in order to do that, he has to integrate the whole world. All these little threads that he started to cause chaos, now he has to integrate back into one mentality. And the Bible tells you that the chosen vehicle for that reality, that final reality of the mystery religion of the ages, Mystery Babylon, coming into reality, manifesting, the Bible tells you that that is the Catholic Church. That is the vehicle where Satan will integrate all of these things. New Age, Zionism, communism, Christian nationalism, Protestantism, all the various threads. Satan will be integrating them in the Catholic Church. So, why is that important? Well, people who say it's the Jews, look at the Zionists. It's not. It is and it isn't. You have to remember that the Jews were nothing before the 1700s. They were nothing. They were nobody. They were destroyed after AD 70 when God cast judgment on them. And they were dispersed. They had other revolts. I think like the Bar Kokhba revolt was like in the 100 AD or something. But they got destroyed, man. Come on. They were a ragtag group of people. Then they got kicked out of Europe, like most European countries, for reasons that I will have you look up on your own because I can't say them on YouTube. They were nobody. They were a ragtag group of people. So what happened in the 1700s? Well, Rothschild got recruited by the Jesuits. He got placed and propped up. The Rothschilds are the papal bankers. You can look it up. Rothschild means red shield in German. Red shield is a name that appeals to the Roman red shields, as in protecting the money from the Vatican. They were propped up during the French Revolution because the Jesuits were banned, and so they needed an illicit banking arm to handle all their money so that people wouldn't say, oh, look at the Jesuits, they have all this money. The Jesuits were billionaires or possibly even trillionaires as a result of the Spanish reductions in South America for like 200 years when the conquistadors, which were Catholic, went to South America and North America. They colonized practically all the Western world. Well, guess what the Jesuits did? The Jesuits used that military and they created these reductions in South America. If you don't know about those, then I have a future episode planned to really go deep dive. I've talked about it, I believe, in my French Revolution episode. But the reductions were basically, the Jesuits practiced communism 200 years before they actually did it through the French Revolution, and eventually that led to Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, a Protestant, in quotation marks. So you have to understand that they got so wealthy off of enslaving these poor Native Americans and Native Indians, and they amassed, I don't know how much money, but they amassed a ton of money. And of course, that money needed to be, guarded. So that's where the Rothschilds came in. The Rothschilds are nobody. They were just propped up. And now, of course, the Rothschilds are a name that everybody knows, but the Rothschilds are not the end. Napoleon also, during the French Revolution, was a Jesuit agent. And he was used by the Jesuits as a messiah figure to seduce the Jews into the idea that going back to their land, which was nobody in 1700 years had ever even thought of such nonsense until Napoleon and the French Revolution. And I cover this in my French Revolution episode. Napoleon was all about the Jews. He was all about liberating the Jews. And there's a little graphic, an old graphic drawing of him with like this one-eyed pyramid giving the light to the Jews and bringing them into the light. And of course, what did Napoleon want to do? He wanted to rebuild the third temple. He was going to proclaim Jerusalem as the state of Israel. They were already trying to do that in the 1800, 1700, very, very early on with Napoleon. Of course, at that time, the world wasn't completely under the thralls of the Rothschild banking system and everything else. So the British Freemasons interfered with Napoleon and they stopped him from doing that. But that was his plan. That was their plan. And people don't know that history. Why was that their plan? Because the Jesuits need Zionism. They needed a fleshly inversion of Bible prophecy. The Bible tells you that Jesus is the temple. But of course, the Reformation exposed to you who the beast is, which is this Catholic papacy, the man of sin who is this institution of men that Satan has used as a religio-political leader of the world. And the Reformation exposed that. That's a real problem. So we need to do some cleanup and create different prophecies, inversions of these prophecies. Instead of Christ being the temple, oh, no, the Jews need to build a physical temple. Instead of 1,260 years, so you look in history, oh, no, it's literal 1,260 days. It's 3.5 years, the tribulation. All of these things came out of the Jesuits, folks. Yeah, premillennialism is old. The church fathers believed in a 1,000-year golden age, but that's all they believed in. They didn't believe in a rapture. They didn't believe the Jews would come back and build a third temple. They didn't believe in a 7-year tribulation. You know, all this other dispensationalist stuff that was added to premillennialism. That's what the Jesuits did. They took traditional premillennialism and they bastardized it with all sorts of, inversions that took attention off of the beast. And of course, once they committed to that false prophecy, well, now we need the Jews again. No more, chasing the Jews away or putting them under torture with the Inquisition or blood laws or all these types of things. So you have to understand that the Jesuits needed the Jews, and because they were forced to commit to this prophecy, they started working on Zionism right away. With Napoleon, Zionism was begun. Of course, Napoleon failed because of things I mentioned, but within 100 years, the Rothschilds had taken over England and had taken over a lot of other areas through the wars and through lending money and funding both sides. This was the avenue. Of course, the United States fell to that same strategy in 1871 with the Act of 1871 after the Civil War had been fomented by the Jesuits. And both sides were funded. And of course, the North won. That was a little inconvenient. But nonetheless, hey, United States is bankrupt, so now we get to buy you. And the Corporation of Washington, D.C. was created. So look, they've been doing that for a long time. And over the course of between the Rothschilds being propped up, the French Revolution, the American Civil War, all these things happened in Europe, World War I. By the time you get to World War II, the British were like, sure, we'll do whatever you say, Lord Rothschild. And so Lord Rothschild funded the state of Israel, along with, of course, Herzl met with the Pope earlier before that in 1900. Theodor Herzl, everybody knows him, but they don't know that, most people don't know that he met with the Pope, let alone that he met with the Pope and promised the Pope a mass conversion of the Jews to Roman Catholicism if they could have their own land. And so lo and behold, what happens after Herzl met with the Pope? Well, within 50 years, you have the two most bloodiest wars in history, the reshaping of Europe. You have Germany being set up by the dark to be full of communists, so that way there's a reason to bring up a charismatic light leader like Hitler to do reforms. Hitler was propped up. He was very much, all about the Jesuits, and Hitler was also part Rothschild. He was a bastard child of Rothschild, I forget what's his name, and his one of his maids, basically. He was a bastard child of Rothschild. So he was half Jewish, and he's half Rothschild. But he's also, in on with the Jesuits and the occult. So it's all one big club, folks. trying to trace down all these various Antichrist vehicles is a waste of time. It's useful up to a point. That's my point with all this. That's why, again, the Bible is just so profound. It's like in such a simple way, it gives you exactly what you need to focus on and fill in information as you go, because it tells you the head of the snake. Hitler, of course, organized the transfer agreement where the Zionist party and the Nazi party worked together. There's a coin struck in their honor that I've documented before with the swastika and a star of Remphan on the other side. And of course, the Rothschilds funded it because the Rothschilds are the Jesuit bankers. After World War II, Germany and the US basically beefed up Zionism, gave it probably, who knows, more than $400 billion over the last 100 years, or whatever, 80 years or whatever it's been. And there's a reason for that. It's not just like, well, that just happened. The Jews took control of everything. No, that's not what happened. That's what they want you to happen, because the Jews have always been used as scapegoats by the real snake. And of course, the snake is manipulating the Jews as well, because the snake needs the Jews for their false prophecy, to fool the world into worshiping the beast. And so they gave the Jews exactly what they wanted. The Jews, since the time of Christ and beyond, always lusted after a conquering Messiah. Somebody who looks, heck, even from their first king. Even from their first king. You know what's so funny? This just came to my mind. When you read, like, the book of Samuel about Saul being elected as king, Saul was the first king. And now, why is that significant? Well, because they had a king already, and God says, they have rejected me as king, so therefore go ahead, give them a king, i.e. give them what they want. Let them learn their lesson. And it's so funny because the Bible tells you, so literally it describes Saul as tall, dark, and handsome. He was the tallest one, and he was the best looking one of all of them. Why does it tell you that? It doesn't just say willy-nilly he was tall, dark, and handsome. It tells you that because it reflects to you what the values of these people are. That they had given up the spiritual king of the universe that they couldn't see, instead for a sinful, flawed, human, but good-looking and tall. He looks like a king. Even when Samuel went to go pick David out as a king, and he's looking at Jesse's sons, there's another scene where, again, the Bible's very direct about it to point something out, where Samuel is like, oh, that one looks like a king. Like, oh, he looks good. He must look like a king. And God says, no, I've rejected him. And of course, David is still doing his pasturing or whatever he's doing, and he's not there yet. But Samuel's looking at all these guys. Man, these guys are good looking. He looks like a king. This is the same attitude that was all the way through Christ. The apostles, they expected a conquering king, a conquering Messiah. Of course, we do have a conquering Messiah, but it happens in two stages. The first one, he conquered over death through the resurrection. And the second time, he's going to conquer this physical Antichrist system when he returns and destroys it. But the Jews could not get over the fact that the Messiah had to suffer. They couldn't get over it. And they still couldn't get over it. And that's why they were so easily seduced by the false light of a conquering Messiah. And the Jesuits knew that. The Jesuits are masters of manipulation, folks. They knew exactly what the Jews wanted, and they gave it to them. They propped up Napoleon as this glorious Messiah that would come and give them back their nationality. And after Napoleon, of course, Napoleon lost. But after Napoleon, you had this back and forth. The reforms that Napoleon started gave the Jews a taste of nationalism. And then, of course, Catholic Europe and white Europe took it away. No, we're not going to give you all these rules and benefits. And then there was reform back the other way. So it started this dialectic of back and forth reform, which made a lot more anxiousness and desire in the Jewish community for their own nation. Out of this political turmoil, you had people like Hess, who is the grandfather of Zionism, who also was buddy-buddy with Marx and Engels, by the way. They called him the communist rabbi. So there's that. But then you also had Theodor Herzl. So you had this wave, and it all started with the Jesuits and Napoleon, their false prophecy. Of course, they were steering all these things throughout history anyway. And anyway, long story short, we get back to the present moment. with Zionism being fed billions and billions and billions of dollars. Why? Because it accomplished certain things. It held an anchor in the Middle East to justify endless wars. It helped the petrodollar and the military-industrial complex. So it kept America, which is the papacy's sword, basically, military arm, it kept America strong. It held also an anchor in the Christian right with dispensationalism by cementing this idea that Bible prophecy has being fulfilled. Of course, Bible prophecy will be fulfilled, but not in the way that people are being deceived by. By having the state of Israel and making it seem like, oh, things are happening, there's more land acquiring, oh, Bible prophecy is being fulfilled, guys. They were cementing all of the stuff happening in the United States with dispensationalism, and Christian Zionism was emerging, was becoming a more fanatical movement, and eventually, which has happened recently as of the last 20 to 30 years especially, Christian Zionism, the charismatic movement, and the NAR have all blended into one Christian nationalist eschatological view. It's very fascinating. I talk about this in the Great Delusion series. The traditional dispensationalist movement has been long infiltrated, and now it is ripe for the flipping into Christian nationalism. How does that work? Watch my Great Delusion series, but the point is that the charismatic movement has fused Christian nationalism to dispensationalism to turn it into this new thing. The NAR people are like a new breed of Christian Zionists. For them, it's not about, let's wait for the Jews to colonize Israel and then the rapture's going to start and the tribulation's going to start. For them, it's, we need to convert the Jews so that Jesus can come. Do you see how this works? And how now, because this has been the mission of uniting all these far-right Christian nationalist Zionist dispensationalists all into one false, I don't even know what to call it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just this, not even NAR works anymore for me. It's just this false thing, this new spirit, old spirit, whatever you want to call it. Whatever, it's a delusion. It's the Great Delusion. Let's call it that. But that thing has now reached critical mass. It's done. So, time for Zionism to come to an end. That's the point. So today you're going to see how all of these things are culminating and how the Great Delusion is coming to pass, because it's not long, folks. And unless you wake up, you will get pulled into what happens next. So, the New World Order is not Jewish. It's not Muslim. It's not communist. It is Catholic. It's Christian nationalist. Zionism is Antichrist. There's many Zionist agents. I'm not saying there aren't. I'm telling you what the Bible's telling you, that the future is not Zionist. It is Catholic. The Bible warns you that out of all the vehicles of the earth for achieving his singular purpose, Satan chose and gave his power and throne and great authority to the Catholic papacy. The Jews have always been scapegoats for the Jesuits and the papacy. I mean, heck, even Manuel, I think it was Manuel Lacunza, one of the Jesuits, I think it was Manuel Lacunza, who was one of the authors of this false prophecy. The way he published his book, he published it as like a Jewish pseudonym. Rabbi Yosef ben Ezra or something like that. I think that was the name. So he published it under the guise of a Jew, just so that, nobody would find out. And of course, people like Edward Irving, John Nelson Darby figured that book out. Edward Irving was so enthralled by Manuel Lacunza's book that he translated it into English. And lo and behold, that's how you have a common thread for the charismatic movement, dispensationalism, and the Jesuits all in one. Of course, the charismatic movement goes way back before that, but again, these are different threads that Satan has started. The Kundalini spirit is thousands of years old, and now it's being integrated into the Catholic Church through the charismatic movement, through this new thing, which is really just the old thing. It's just a counterfeit of the ages coming to light. So today you're going to see how all of this is happening. Hopefully you'll be able to see it, and that the Jews are going to be converted. That is the destination we're headed to. And not only that, but the Jews will worship on Sunday. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? I know it does. But just hopefully you'll stick with me. So that's point number 1 from verses 2 and 3 in Revelation 13. The next point, which is shorter, is again that the whole earth marvels after the beast. You have to come to terms with that. Once you have identified the beast, and of course that's easy to do if you have proper hermeneutics and you're not a dispensationalist, you must reconcile the fact that it says the whole earth will marvel after the beast. Revelation 13:8 says, and all who dwell on the earth will worship it. Who are these people? Everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of the life of the Lamb who was slain. I.e., the elect will not be deceived. Remember what Jesus says in Matthew 24? The deception will be so great, if it were possible, which it's not, it would fool the elect. Meaning the only way you're getting out of this great delusion that's coming upon the earth, and it's already here, is if God grants you supernatural wisdom. And that granting is a factor of whether he'd chosen to save you or not from before he created the world. So if you have a saving relationship with Jesus Christ, be grateful for him today. Thank God. Ask him to give you discernment and to protect you from the supernatural delusion that is coming upon the world. We're talking supernatural. It's going to be with all powers and marvels and signs and wonders and workings of Satan. So you need to have extra large Fennec fox ears for what is coming. In Revelation 13, verses 16 through 17, it talks about the image of the beast and the mark. It also causes all, both great and small, rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Now, there's a whole study on this, and of course it's a very popular topic, very misunderstood topic. But what is the point that I want to highlight to you? It is that it says all, again, all kinds of people. And it's not all, the word all here doesn't mean that everybody's going to be forced into the mark of the beast. The word all means all kinds of people are going to, there's nobody that's not going to have to make a choice. Let's put it that way. All kinds of people, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, i.e. everybody. You will have to make a choice between the devil and God. And of course, we go into great depth in my End Time series, The Mark of the Beast, Sabbath episode about that. So make sure you get edified, don't be stubborn. Learn the truth, because a lot of people fight me on this, and you're not fighting me, you're fighting the truth. Learn the truth. Watch those episodes and indulge the evidence and be ready for what's coming. Christians who are awake to the Zionist agenda, you need to go one step further. Go one step further. You know all about the evils of the state of Israel and Zionism and all that stuff. Great. You know the truth about World War II. Great. Go one step further. Go where the Bible takes you, which is points you to the head of the snake. If you believe that the Bible is the Word of God, and it's infallible, inerrant, and it tells you the truth, then you must reconcile what I just read to you. All people will come to worship the beast. The beast is not Zionism, I can guarantee you that. The beast is Catholicism. That means the Jews will be converted and that they will worship on Sunday. If you think this sounds crazy, watch all the videos I cited, give me the benefit of the doubt, examine the evidence, build your beliefs on evidence, not on emotion, and look at what I'm going to present to you today, honestly, because it's going to be some good stuff. Remember that the Bible is 100% the truth, and God has given you that truth ahead of time. So everybody is going to be forced to make a choice. Now, with all that historical and biblical context out of the way, what is happening right now? Let's go to the present moment. Well, what's happening is Zionism is getting exposed, and it's getting exposed one step at a time, but it's also happening very quickly. Just like the deep state was exposed, but much faster. For reference, Trump, the whole deep state thing with Trump and the deep state and the Q stuff, that was probably a period of about at least 4 years. Between 2016 all the way to 2020, maybe a little bit beyond that. It's still running in some sense. So anywhere between 4 to 8 years, they've been running this psyop to wake people up to the communist agenda. Of course, most people are now awake. It's been, 6 years, 7 years. That's a long time. But nonetheless, still actually pretty short if you think about it in the grand context of history and how, things like, Zionism. Zionism's been around for, 80 years or whatever, or even more longer than that if you count Moses Hess and Theodor Herzl. things are changing very rapidly. So Trump, you had the deep state, the whole, red pill on the deep state stuff. That was probably about 4 to 8 years, give or take. Compare that to Israel with this whole Gaza situation. It's at the time of this video, it's been going on for about 8 months approximately. 8 months. And now suddenly you're seeing people on mainstream news places criticizing Israel and questioning Israel and all these things happening. It's like, what is going on? In such a short period of time, suddenly this is just being self-destructed. You have to realize that. It's not just Christians waking up to the Zionist power structure and we're going to take down the Zionists and usher in a golden age. No. Zionism is coming to an end, folks, and the true puppet masters are destroying it, and it will annihilate itself, probably with extremist jihadis, and the remaining foundation will be eventually converted. Why is this important? Well, the third temple has to be rebuilt to fulfill their false prophecy. It has to. They have to do something with it. And that is going to cement this Christian Zionist NAR, counterfeit spirit, whatever you want to call it, the Great Delusion. It's going to cement the Great Delusion. Imagine when the third temple actually starts being built. Imagine how hard it's going to be to talk to people who are Zionists, dispensationalists, NAR, Messianics, all these people. It's going to be nigh impossible. Again, unless God supernaturally wakes that person up, the best you can hope for is presenting them with the truth and praying for them. Really. Once they start building this temple, it's going to be nuts. Of course, once they start building it, it's also going to spark a conflict in the Middle East and lead to Islam getting involved through a holy war. And that conflict will either, one of the two, again, I'm not sure on which way they're going to go. We have to watch things as they develop. But it will either lead to a supernatural situation with a false miracle or false sign, Jesus, Mary, who knows what's going to happen. Or it's going to lead to world peace in some form or fashion, some sort of dialectic, a lot of conflict, oh my gosh. And then now let's have a world peace situation, which will, of course, set the stage for a charismatic revival in the Middle East. I talk about this in my Great Delusion series in the Islam and Zionism episodes. And recently in my episode on Did the Catholic Church Create Islam, I also talk about how Muslims are already converting to Catholicism. The rate of conversion of Muslims to Christianity has exponentially risen in the last 20 years. And it's getting more and more. People are finding out through the internet that Muhammad is a false prophet, that the Quran refutes itself countless times, that their religion is a false religion, and they're converting. They're converting. Now, the problem is, I'm sure that God has elect in the Muslim world that he's drawing out through all these things. I absolutely believe that. I believe God has elect in the Jewish world that he's drawing out through all of these situations. However, that's not the majority of people. The majority of people who are converting are running into the counterfeit. Whether it's Protestantism that keeps Sunday, or Catholicism or Orthodoxy, all these things are going to be integrated. So it doesn't matter where you go. It's like choose between options 1 through 25. They're all leading to the same door in the end. Does that make sense? So these people are converting, but most of them are being converted into the new thing, the counterfeit. So I document it there as well. You also have ecumenism, cultural spies like Candace Owens, Marmari, Russell Brand, Tate, all these influencers. Influencers are the new thing, folks. That's how they're shaping culture so quickly. Of course, there's other things they're doing. Like I said, ecumenism, they have these cultural spies, they have political dialogues, like with the whole thing with Trump, secret societies. All of these things are designed to shape reality. That's really what it's about. Because why? Because the devil wants to be worshipped. That's the ultimate reality that all of this is heading to. And they are shaping it faster and faster and faster. Now, another important thing is that Muslim end times views are also very intersected with Jewish views and the Jesuit false prophecy of a third temple. All of these three false prophecies, Muslim eschatology, Jewish eschatology, and Jesuit eschatology, all of them intersect with this third temple. And that's by design, because the Antichrist spirit is going to integrate everything through this dialectic. So we'll have to watch and see what happens. But either way, there will be a catalyst for the Middle East to go into, Armageddon mode. And they even have their Jewish Hanukkah, the Rav Shlomo Yehuda, whatever his name is, false Messiah guy doing miracles already. Of course, he's been kind of under the rug a little bit, but he's this charismatic young little guy that's got, ton of followers. He's doing miracles. He has all the books memorized. He's a prodigy. And people are like, this is the Messiah. This is the Messiah. All the Jews are all about him. So what is the point? The point is that there are many things intersecting to point to the fact that they are going to drive this dialectic home somehow. And the question is how, and I explore that in my Great Delusion series, but these things are increasing and they're going to continue increasing until they reach a climax, until Islam and Zionism annihilate each other, and ultimately they also will integrate into the new thing. Bible prophecy will be fulfilled as a result. So, now that you have all of this context, very important context, it's time to look at some current events. This is from People's World, and it's .org. It says, someone new. Stock traders made millions short selling before October 7th Hamas attacks. This is from, we're going to go in order here as far as the news, relatively in order. This is from December of last year, barely 6 months ago. So within a month or two of this October 7th thing happening, which of course they knew about it. Everybody knew it was on purpose. Just like September 11th. What happened? Well, people short sold. Some investors active on New York and Tel Aviv stock exchanges apparently knew in advance that Hamas militants were about to launch their attack on Israel before October 7th and that a war would follow. So they knew. Surprised? Not really. They used that knowledge to cash in by short selling Israel-linked shares, generating a profit windfall worth millions of dollars. That's the claim being made by researchers at New York University and Columbia University. Our evidence is consistent with informed traders anticipating and profiting from the Hamas attack. And that war erupted in its wake. Financial markets experts Robert J. Jackson of NYU and Joshua Mitz, who is probably a Jew, which is interesting, of Columbia, concluded in an explosive paper published December 4th. I think they have some graphs here that can show you short volumes. People just suddenly spike in short sales right before, a couple days before October. Here's October 7th. Here's the short selling. Of course, they probably knew about it, but a month ahead of time, you can see them already starts to rise within a couple weeks before. So they knew about it. Everybody, if you know your history, like with Lucky Larry, did Larry Silverstein get a huge insurance payout for the World Trade Center? This is from Quora. One person said this. Yes, Larry Silverstein received a significant insurance payout for the World Trade Centers. According to, and these are various sources, according to Source One, which he posts, World Trade Center properties and other entities affiliated with the developer, Larry Silverstein, have already collected about $4.1 billion from a number of insurers. Additionally, Source 2 states that Silverstein has won nearly $4.6 billion in insurance payments to cover his losses and to help him rebuild the World Trade Center. However, it is worth noting that number 3 mentions that Silverstein had already received all the compensation for which it is eligible, the $4.1 billion paid by property insurers in 2004. So Lucky Larry, if you know about him, again, there's nothing new under the sun, folks. This is not unique to the Jews. People do this all the time. It's the Antichrist spirit. Stealing, murdering, all these things are just the devil's fruits. And so what is the point? The point is that this is getting exposed. These are news stories that are getting exposed to you, and people are like, wait a minute. This is from AP, I believe. The photo says, with all eyes on its genocide in Gaza, Israel has continued to subject Palestinians in the West Bank to brutal oppression under Israeli apartheid and military rule. Israel has killed 400 Palestinians in the West Bank since October, including 100 children, which is just, it's so sad what these people are doing. This is from TRT World. Israel killed at least 157 Palestinians in Gaza since UN ceasefire resolution. So after the ceasefire resolution, they still killed probably dozens and dozens and dozens of innocent people. This is as of March, I believe. So It says at least, and Israel's lost about 1,100 people, injured about 8,700 people. Palestine, Gaza, has lost almost 33,000 people and injured at least 75,000 people. Occupied West Bank, another 450, and another 4,600 people injured. So thousands upon thousands of people, just tens of thousands really, affected by this sacrifice. It's a sacrifice that they're doing for their occult religion to bring about the new thing. This is from somebody on Red, I believe, on Instagram. It's got a picture of Libya, and it says UN Security Council resolution to start a war, binding. Gaza, with this picture of this poor woman holding her child. UN Security Council resolution to stop a war, non-binding. So again, just shows you the constant injustice. Now, this is so all these things happening now, what do you see as a result in the United States? Well, you see protests. These are screenshots from these various protests, violent arrests at USC encampment for Gaza. And of course, part of those protests, like supposedly George Soros, and all of them probably funded it. Who knows, but ultimately they are happening for a reason. Let's put it that way. They are happening for a reason. Here's another one. It says police at Ohio State University arrested students at encampments for Palestine. Reports that students have been beaten and tased by police. So now they're giving you injustices for standing up for injustice. Do you get the point? It is baiting you with anger and injustice. Breaking news, Yukon police had made their first arrest and have taken our tents. These are screenshots. Of course, I didn't have the video because the videos are pretty dramatic, but you can tell what's going on. Here's another one. Violent arrest at USC encampment for Gaza. I think I already did that one. This is from Tiberius on Twitter. They want you to believe that the chair of the philosophy department is the threat to Western values and not the masked armed man brutalizing her for expressing anti-war sentiments. So now even the liberal education people are just, the philosophers and the professors are getting involved and getting arrested. And of course they have a guy with kind of what looks like to be like an ISIS type of head covering. He's specifically dressed to look like a terrorist. I mean, come on. These things are so obvious if you have eyes to see. Who is the light in this case? The one standing up for injustice. Who is the dark? The guy who's suppressing her. And this is designed to polarize you one way or another. It's not designed for you to walk a narrow road and to indulge the evidence. It's designed to polarize you with emotion. This is just another screenshot of all these different universities, just all over university protests. And of course, what that causes, what does that lead to? Well, the House, if this thing can load, passes what does it say? House passes bill. This is now May 2nd. House passes bill aimed to combat anti-Semitism amid college unrest. So you have so now let's really quick before we continue, let's put the pieces together just for the last 6 months of history. We know that they knew that October 7th would happen, so they allowed it to happen. They stopped security. The people who had money to make, they made money. It happened. Now there's a pretext for invading Gaza, which of course Hamas was started by Israel to begin with, but that's another story. Now there's a pretext to invade Gaza. That creates an injustice, which now creates all of this exposing and now protests. Now the deep state is now trying to limit you and illegalize the Bible now because of anti-Semitism. And of course you have this dialect, it's constant dialect. You see what's going on? One thing goes to another. It's a ping pong match designed to ultimately lead you back to the beast. And you'll see how that connects. Obviously, this is a very controversial act. The House of Representatives passed on a bill on Wednesday aimed at addressing reports of rising anti-Semitism on college campuses, where activists angered by Israel's war against Hamas have been protesting for months and more recently set up encampments on campus grounds. The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act would see the adoption of Internal Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism for the enforcement of federal anti-discrimination laws regarding education programs. The bill passed with a 320 to 91 vote. 70 Democrats and 21 Republicans voted against the measure. And of course, this is now causing an uproar in the conservative crowd, in the Christian nationalist NAR crowd. And I'll show you some proof of that. Here's Tucker Carlson And this is responding to Charlie Kirk, which of course they're both in. Tucker Carlson wears a red Kabbalah bracelet, folks. Charlie Kirk is all about the new thing and Christian nationalism and everybody walking and marveling after the beast. But anyway, Charlie Kirk says, did the House of Representatives just make the parts of the Bible illegal? Of course they didn't. But what is the point? The point is to agitate you as a Christian who is on the fence and conservative probably, because Christianity is conservative. The point is to agitate you. Hey, we don't like you being on that narrow road. Come on, go to the right already. Go to this thing with us. Look, they're making the Bible illegal. And of course, Tucker Carlson, echo chamber. Yes, they made the New Testament illegal. Here's another one. This is from Matt Walsh. He's Catholic, right? He's very influential. He's a very big influencer. Conservative, seems down to earth, exposing all these liberals for you so you can come to his perspective and, enjoy the Eucharist with him. You need to understand how crazy this anti-Semitism bill is that just passed the House with wide bipartisan approval. The law requires the Department of Education to adopt the definition of anti-Semitism provided by something called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which of course, if you know anything about anything with World War II, you know and you see through these things and you know that they are nonsense. And of course, this is what is starting to come to light in mainstream. They're not saying it openly, but people are starting to question like, hey, this is unfair. Maybe what's going on over here? Where do all these policies come from? Let me learn a little more about World War II. And oh, that's interesting. This is from Anomaly. He's supposedly kind of a narrow road walker, but you can tell what side these people play on. Did I not tell you this 5 years ago? And he's quoting Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk, basically has this whole thing about response to anti-Israel protests. The House is rushing to vote a new bill. This bill would officially define anti-Semitism to the federal government, can sue, prosecute, or sanction more people, businesses, and universities for supposed violations of civil rights law. Starting to put that Jewish thing right in your face, folks, mainstream. Starting to make you feel like, maybe these Jews need to be converted. Here you go. I abhor anti-Semitism. So I'm still with you guys, but this bill is flagrantly unconstitutional and an appalling attack on the First Amendment. This bill would make it illegal to compare Israeli policies to Nazi policies. It would make it illegal to describe Israel as racist. It would make it illegal to accuse an American citizen being more loyal to Israel than to the United States. You see, Zionism is starting to get exposed. But no, I'm against anti-Semitism. Let me just draw that line. Which, of course, if you know the history of that word and how it's been weaponized, it's a nonsense word. Why are Jews the only ones that get to be using anti-Semitism? There are a lot of different Semites. Anti-Semitism is against Shem. Shem was one of Noah's sons, and he had a lot of kids. A lot of different peoples came from Shem, not just ultimately the Hebrews, which led to the Israelites, which led to the Jews. But nonetheless, watch my documentary on why the Jews are not God's chosen people for that one. But you see what's going on. Look, they're making it illegal for you to do this and that. Now you can't even question people's allegiance to Israel. So what's happening? Because before it was all about Israel, Israel, Israel. Now it's illegal to do this. We should fight for our rights to be able to question Israel. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now Anomaly's quoting Marjorie Taylor Greene, who of course is way neck deep in the whole Christian nationalist NAR. Trump is, our Messiah type of movement. He says, she's right, and I've told people this for years. The hate speech rules consider Bible interpretations anti-Semitism. Yeah, they do in some sense, of course, and that's the liberal agenda, but why is that there? That's the dark, designed to push you into the light and rebel against this atheistic power that's trying to grab at your Bible and grab at your values, so that you demand that religion and government unite again, because that is the only way to keep this atheistic power at bay. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene says, anti-Semitism is wrong. There you go again. Just to make sure, like, well, no, we're not against all the Jews. We're just against the Zionist Jews. You're going to see how that shapes up in just a little bit. But I will not be voting for the anti-Semitism awareness. It's funny that they call it that. If you understand the occult and their little esoteric, you wonder if like this was just done in a sense like they're making you aware of anti-Semitism, but actually like from the beast's perspective. Like, oh, it's time for people to become aware of this so that we can flip them from dark to light, as opposed to the meaning that people think this is, which is enforcing anti-Semitism. Anyway, just mind games, but she does want to vote on it. Today, that could convict Christians of anti-Semitism for believing the gospel that says Jesus was handed over to Herod to be crucified by the Jews. Read the bill text and contemporary examples of anti-Semitism like number 9. So basically, she's exposing to you something that is, again, this atheistic, anti-Christian agenda, which is, look, you can't say that the Jews killed Jesus, which of course the Bible tells you, the Gospel of John. Hello, read the Gospel of John. That's as anti-Semitic as it gets by their definition. So they're exposing to you a truth, which is what is the point here? The big bad atheistic Zionists are coming after your Christian life. They're the enemy that needs to be exposed and eventually subverted. Here's some more news from War on Gaza. 30% of children below age 2 in Gaza acutely malnourished. This is from Al Jazeera. So sad. Look at these kids, man. It just breaks my heart. Look at this. UNICEF, according to UNICEF, Palestinians starving in northern Gaza could receive aid within 10 minutes if Israel allowed. These things are coming out. And UNICEF is a big deal. They're a major mainstream organization. Since October, the Israeli military has deliberately destroyed roughly 40% of all farmland in Gaza. Just ruthless. The Zionists think that you're an animal, but really it's the other way around. This is from Tech Malik 92, Asifa Malik on Twitter. It's official that Israel failed to provide any evidence to back up its allegations against UNRWA, which was that organization that was sending aid, I believe. That means US, UK, and other soulless countries agreed to starve Palestinians for absolutely no reason. So that's coming out. Of course, it's all by design. This is Matt Lieb on Twitter. In a shocking turn of events, it turns out Israel lied about UNRWA being a front for Hamas, and now Israel's best friend Germany is resuming funding. Surprise, surprise, they lied? Are you surprised? But now it's coming to the surface. We knew that they lied as soon as they came out. You don't have to have somebody expose that to you if you have enough track record of a particular organization. Of course they lied, and now it's coming out to the surface that they lied. It's just a debacle. This is Yeshiva World News. For shame. This gets interesting. Neturei Karta's terrorist-loving Yisrael David Weiss burns American flag. This is May 7th. Yisrael David Weiss, a leader of the Neturei Karta in the U.S., who runs around the world to kiss notorious terrorists and Holocaust deniers, this is from a Jewish site, isn't content with supporting the world's most miscreants. He has to oppose the country that provides him his shelter, too. On Monday evening, Weiss participated in the burning of an American-Israeli flag during a street protest near the Met Museum in Manhattan. Video from the flag burning shows pro-Hamas demonstrators shouting in Arabic as Weiss helps set the flag alight. So you have this guy who is like a rabbi. He's like totally, against Zionist Israel and burning flags. And this is a Jew doing this, which is very, very interesting if you understand the trajectory of these things. General Assembly approved, that was from May. General Assembly approves pathway to full Palestinian statehood at the UN. This is in May, recently, from Middle East Eye. So again, why are they doing this? To accelerate the destruction of extremist Zionism and extremist Islam, which is all the jihadis. Here's another interesting one. This is May 19th now. War of words between Israel and the Vatican over Gaza heats up. This is a very interesting thing. The Vatican is now getting involved in public. Of course, they're always involved, but publicly now on the stage of the tennis match, the Vatican comes in and serves a ball into the court. Just as Israel continues to deploy its military hard power on the Gaza Strip, defying international pressure to back down, so too it shows no signs of halting its soft power campaign either. On the contrary, Israel is pursuing a relentless war of words against any party it believes guilty of false moral equivalence between terrorism and self-defense, or of trafficking in anti-Semitic tropes. One such soft power front is with the Vatican, as Israel officials, in tandem with a cohort of Jewish leaders from around the world, are asserting that influential Catholic figures are displaying moral blindness and/or lack of integrity to use the language of one such recent protest. So the Catholics are now starting to say some, just lightly getting involved in, of course, publicly speaking, against Israel, which is such an interesting thing. 3 skirmishes in the last 10 days captured the dynamics of this soft power standoff. First up was a May 8 essay published by L'Osservatore Romano, the Vatican newspaper, and on the Vatican News site, written by Jesuit Father David Newhouse. Ding, ding, ding. Who currently serves as a professor at the Pontifical Biblical Institute in Jerusalem and a member of the Justice and Peace Commission for the Catholic Ordinaries of the Holy Land. Now, whatever you see as the title of an organization, just invert it to actually understand what its actual purpose is. Born in South Africa to a German Jewish family, Newhouse moved to Israel at 15 and converted to Catholicism at 26. He's a longtime fixture in Jewish-Catholic relations and served as a parochial vicar for Hebrew-speaking Catholics in Israel from 2009 to 2017. In his complex 2,500-word May 8 piece, Newhouse's central contention was that anti-Semitism has been a cancer, not only for Jews, but also, in a sense, for Palestinians, in that it was the legacy of the Holocaust that created momentum towards foundation of a Jewish state in the Middle East and set the stage for what the Arabs call the Nakba, or catastrophe, referring to the forced displacement of Palestinians during the 1948 war. Along the way, Newhouse argues that Zionism, meaning the drive to create a Jewish state, was influenced by 19th and early 20th century European nationalism and colonialism, and insisted that criticizing Zionism is not necessarily tantamount to anti-Semitism. The snake is revealing to you the truth, in some sense, and he is divorcing Zionism from anti-Semitism and the Jewish identity. So Zionism is getting peeled off because it's going to get thrown away. It's done. It served its purpose as a political, economic machine. Now we need to strip the Jews of Zionism so that they're ready for the next phase, which we'll talk about. Moving on, one more little sentence. He also argued that opponents of anti-Semitism and advocates for Palestinian rights should be allies in seeking a society in the Middle East based on justice, peace, freedom, and equality, i.e., the common good. Do you understand what's happening? Zionism served its purpose. Now it's getting divorced from Jews and Judaism and the Jewish identity so that we can have peace, which, of course, peace is going to lead to a charismatic revival. But that was a Jesuit writing to you, a Jesuit who was a Jew who converted to Catholicism and will be probably instrumental in bringing the rest of his people as a messianic or as a Judas goat into the fold. This is a day later. Israel's hawkish Netanyahu faces global isolation. From Yahoo. Israel's hawkish right-wing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is treading increasingly thin ice after the International Criminal Court's prosecutor on Monday sought an arrest warrant for him over war crimes in Gaza. The silver-haired 73-year-old, known by his nickname Bibi, has dominated his country's politics for decades, but now faces mounting isolation both at home and abroad over his handling of the war against Hamas in Gaza. Netanyahu has faced staunch criticism for the security failures that led to Hamas's unprecedented attack on October 7th, which resulted in the deaths of more than 1,100 people, mostly civilians, according to an AFP tally of Israeli official figures. He has remained steadfast in his vow to, quote, eliminate Hamas, i.e. the power that they put into place, overseeing Israel's bloody response to the attack that has ravaged Gaza and killed at least 35,000 people, most of them civilians, according to the Hamas-run territory's health ministry. The International Criminal Court's prosecutor Karim Khan said Monday that he applied for an arrest warrant against Netanyahu and his defense minister Yoav Gallant for crimes including willful killing, extermination, and also murder and starvation. Netanyahu has stood the course in Gaza, sending troops into the far southern city of Rafah this month in defiance of pleas from Israel's main international ally, the United States. Quote, if we have to stand alone, we will stand alone. Of course, they are committed to the agenda, folks. These people are puppets. They do what they are told. They are doing their part of the plan to bring along the dialectic. All these people are blackmailed. All these people are secret society members. All these people do what they're told to do. So they are doing, of course, Rafah, all the poor people that ran to Rafah now, it's just a madhouse because now they're basically all concentrated there. And of course, nobody wants to help them. And Israel keeps attacking them because there's Hamas. And of course, it's just an excuse to increase these dialectics of injustices and polarize people so that Zionism can be extracted and thrown away and the Jewish identity can be reformed away from Zionism, which is very important. Very important to understand these things. Let's see. This is from Independent Global News. Democracy Now, I guess is the name. Yeah, Democracy Now. What is the title? Meet Lily Greenberg. Greenberg call. First Jewish Biden appointee to publicly resign over Gaza. May 21st. We speak with Lily Greenberg call, the first known Jewish appointee to resign from the Biden administration over the war in Gaza. Greenberg Call was a special assistant to the chief of staff of the Interior Department after being named to the post by President Joe Biden in early 2023, but she quit on May 15th in a 4-page letter that slammed Biden's disastrous continued support for Israel's genocide in Gaza. Greenberg Call is at least the 5th high-profile resignation from the Biden administration since October 7th. She says her resignation was motivated by her Jewish values. I feel that I'm really living in my Jewishness, in the essence of what I was raised with, by standing up for Palestinians and by demanding their freedom. See what's going on? Greenberg Call tells Democracy Now! Criticizing Biden and others for pitting Jewish safety against Palestinian rights. I'm so angry at the president that he's using my community as justification for this slaughter, making us the face of the American war machine, which of course, that's the point. The point is to get you awake to the Zionism thing now. Mainstream Zionism doesn't work for us anymore, folks. The Jews need to be divorced of Zionism. Zionism served its purpose to get the Jews hungry for their own piece of land and their empire, their world empire, because that's what they've always wanted. But now it's time for it to come to an end. It's met its purpose. And this is just a fascinating story of a liberal Jew that is now standing up against Zionism. Very interesting. This is from the Daily Mail, who is loaded with ads usually. Let's see. This is, what date is it? May 25th. Dave Chappelle accuses, here we go. So many ads from these people. Dave Chappelle accuses Israel of committing genocide in Gaza in blistering stand-up at Abu Dhabi Comedy Week and reveals the only reason he believes Jewish people support the war. Comedian Dave Chappelle accuses Israel of committing genocide in Gaza during a stand-up show in the Middle East. The comic 50 had been performing in Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, when he made these remarks. Do you think that show was just for fun, or are they shaping culture through influencers? Chappelle, who is a Muslim, if you didn't know, told the crowd that he believes Jewish people support Israel because of a rise in anti-Semitism, which of course he's exposing you to the truth. But remember, folks, if people only knew these things instead of just reacting. What it says, Chappelle, who is a Muslim. Right away you should be thinking, Albert Pike's page 11 of Morals and Dogma, that there's 2 books, and one of them is the guiding light of Freemasonry, and that's the Quran. And the black cube that he has in his book, the fact that you have the Shriners who say an oath to Allah, and you can only get invited to the Shriners if you're a top-ranking Freemason. So when you see Muslim, Dave Chappelle is a Muslim, it is the same thing like saying Billy Graham is a Christian. You get it? It doesn't mean anything. This is just a front for the mystery religion that all these people are part of. And of course, each side is working their particular angle. In my video on Did the Catholic Church Create Islam, I document how within the first, right after Muhammad died, Islam was immediately infiltrated by Gnostic people and secret societies and Gnosticism. So the secret societies, as far as Islam is concerned, has been around a very long time. Of course, it's all one big club and you aren't in it, thank God. But nonetheless, you understand what's going on here. Culture is being shaped, and you have these various cultural provocateurs and agents that are doing what they're doing. Here's another one from the Jerusalem Post. This one's so interesting. Again, if you have eyes to see, IDF dismissed masked soldier who threatened mutiny after investigation. There's this video of this supposed soldier that's threatening mutiny and criticizing Israel. A reserve soldier who hid his identity behind a mask and allegedly called for insurrection within the IDF was on Sunday barred from future service after an inquiry, the military said. The man whose identity has not been released posted a video that went viral at that weekend. He was questioned by the IDF Military Police Investigations Branch, known by the IDF investigated whether the suspect, a business owner from Herzliya and a known Likud activist, according to Israel media, was on active duty when the video was filmed. Initial investigations suggested that the video was not filmed in Gaza, but in an abandoned building somewhere in central Israel. Again, you should understand that whenever you see something going quote unquote viral in this day and age, it is by design. Like with Marmari, I've talked about him quite a bit, and we'll see him in a later video here. These people that just suddenly come up like over the course of a year and like, oh my gosh, now they're viral and everybody's listening to them as some sort of cultural influencer. You have to be very scrutinizing, because most of the time, I'd say everyone that I've seen is not telling you the full truth, or it has some sort of direction that it's wanting you to go, either left or right, one of the two. So when you see these type of viral things, it's very interesting patterns, little movements of the snake in the background. This is from The Telegraph, which of course wants me to subscribe to read it, but the title is it's May 27th. So again, a couple days after that. So you had the soldier, you had all these things happening. A couple days later, what happened? Netanyahu admits tragic mistake as civilians were burned alive in Rafah camp. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Look at these people I don't even want to click the video, but scores killed and many more injured as airstrikes hit displaced people in Tel al-Sultan neighborhood. Of course, they don't tell you that the airstrikes had phosphorus in there, and of course, that is it's an illegal thing you can use. It's not allowed in war because of its repercussions, but that's probably what they were using. Because in other places, this is from Land Palestine on Instagram, I'm guessing. Israel has dropped over 117 white phosphorus bombs on 36 villages in the South Lebanon since October 7th. Deliberately targeting and burning our forests, farmlands, and olive trees, and poisoning our soil, animals, and water. Zero peep from the international community, of course. Yeah, they've been using that since like the 1950s or whatever. They've been using this all the time, but now it's coming to the forefront. Even Netanyahu apologizes for burning people. When you look into why they were burned, you start to realize like, wow, they've been using this for a while. This Zionism thing is really evil. This is a map from, I think it's Al Jazeera, but it's basically a map of where they bombed with white phosphorus attacks, which is just horrible. I mean, look at this. Lebanon, 8 attacks. Hula, 7 attacks. Mace El Jabal, 10 attacks. You have all these attacks all over southern Lebanon. Just horrible. And of course, these people were burned alive when they were bombed. Here's another one. The Guardian finds children were targeted by Israeli snipers in Gaza. The Guardian. The Guardian's like a mainstream thing. And they find what everybody knew from a long time ago, that these people just don't have any rules for war. No respect, because again, for them, they believe that you're an animal. And so whatever, it's like killing a deer. So now it's coming to light that they were snipering kids, which is just so horrible. Horrific news. Israeli forces executes 13 Palestinian children in Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. Again, this is coming out. All the animalistic brutalities that these people have done is coming to light, and people are commenting on it. Breaking. This is from Alfred, whatever this is pronounced. Alfirdaus. Alfirdaus on Twitter. Breaking. CNN reports Israel is using a torture camp against kidnapped men from Palestine. So they have this camp. The picture here is like this person behind some sort of camp with, obviously his overalls. There's a ton of barbed wire. They're all just on a dirt floor hanging out. And the commentary is AKA a concentration camp, because of course nobody's going to actually say that, but people know what's going on. This is designed to expose to you what's going on so that you learn the truth about Zionism. It's time to get people out. Oh, here's our friend Marmarie. Where's my headphones? We have some videos to listen to. Gosh, again, these things are just so obvious if you have eyes to see. Here we go. Let's see what he says.
People of Israel, you will never find peace. You will never accomplish peace. You will never live peace ever until both Jews and Muslims acknowledge Jesus was crucified on Calvary. There will be no peace in Israel. Period. 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 Because the one who gives peace is Jesus of Nazareth. No one else. No one else. No one else. The Jews denied his existence. The Muslims said he was not crucified. But God the Father says, my son was crucified on Golgotha, on Calvary.
Now, as with everything, there is truth to that. Of course, the only peace in the world is the peace that's found in Christ. But who is Marmarie? I've exposed him in my other videos. Check that out. Look at my Great Delusion series. Look at my Catholic Islam recent video. The point is this. He is an agent. If you look at the things that he teaches as far as the end times, he's not pointing you to the truth. He's pointing you to the dark. He's saying, look, the United Nations, the communists, the big bad evil globalists are the beast that's coming in. You know, you need to, in fact, there's a video on him saying, America, listen to me, you need to vote Trump. If you don't vote Trump, you're going to be, you know, that's it. Your empire is coming to an end. Like, why is a random, not so random, quote unquote bishop who had one eye thing with a white patch for a while. Anyway, that's a different story. But why is he telling you how to vote? Again, like, who is this guy? Suddenly come out of nowhere? And of course, if you do some researching on him, like other authentic Syrian Orthodox people have exposed him, some of the weird things that he says, he's just a very strange figure. But he's propped up. He's like this voice in the wilderness. They give him this feel of like a John the Baptist kind of feel. You know what I mean? He's like this internet prophet, and he's always like, oh, and he's got this voice, and you know, it's like, oh my gosh, something emotional is happening here. I better listen to this guy. And what he's telling you is deception. He's telling you, yeah, you got to vote for Trump. Trump is the thing that's going to integrate everything, folks. Trump is the false light. So he's leading you towards the false light. And of course, he's also telling you that there's never going to have peace until Jews and Muslims accept Jesus Christ, which is, again, the danger with all this stuff is this is part true. So you have to be very skilled at eating the meat and spitting out the bones. What does that mean? That means being able to divide truth from error. Jews and Muslims on an individual level will never have peace in their life, and certainly not peace with God, until they accept what Jesus did for them on the cross. If they are elect, they will come to that faith and they will receive the peace of Christ. Absolutely. But what he's really saying with that truth, he's really pointing to this reality that Jews and Muslims need to be converted, folks. They need to be converted. Otherwise, the Middle East, the dialectic, this big, bad, dark problem of the conflict of the Middle East, which has been an artificial conflict, by the way. The Jews and Muslims were fine before all this whole State of Israel thing was implanted in that area to create a justification, dark to light. We have had so much conflict. We need peace. How do we have peace? Well, we have to accept Jesus. Of course, it's not going to be the Jesus of the Gospels. It'll be the Jesus of the charismatic movement, the Catholic movement, the new thing, the Christian nationalist thing. This is Instagram. Oh, gosh. How do I get at it? Let's see. Hold on. Okay. These things don't load with the sound, but... All right, here we go. This is a video. Wow. Israeli police faced unexpected welcome last night in Mea Sharim, a neighborhood of occupied Jerusalem that's home to thousands of anti-Zionist Jews. These are Jews. Check this out. Look at this Palestinian flag. Free Palestine. Isn't that incredible? I mean, I just think that is such a profound thing to see Orthodox Jews with Palestinian flags fighting against their own. It's a fascinating turn of events. And of course, if you know where these things are going, it's even more fascinating because these people will eventually turn Catholic. Now, this is a video I saw, which is a very interesting video. Anti-Zionist rabbi sacrificing red cows to hasten the Messiah is crazy. Let's listen to it.
Driving. Why I'm a fire engine? You're laughing. What are you laughing? I'm driving. You're laughing. Yeah, the same thing what they do with the red cow.
Orthodox Jews who are Zionists plan on sacrificing the cows at some point in the Temple Mount. I think that's the intentions. You know better, maybe, to hasten the coming of the Messiah. When you hear that, what's your thought on that?
I must explain you. I must tell you firstly, these people are not Jewish, are not Zionist. The Zionists are evil. They are murderers, but they are not crazy. These people are crazy people.
So you have two groups by this rabbi that have been identified that are not part of the Jewish identity we want. Zionists, who are evil, and then you have these crazy people who are trying to bring in the Messiah by doing something with their sacrifices.
People. This is not Zionist. The Zionists don't believe in God. They don't believe in the Torah. They don't believe in the red cow. Did you ever heard Bibi Netanyahu speaking about the red cow? He laughed on that. It's a joke. He don't believe in nothing. It's a joke. The Zionists are evil, but not crazy. Yes. Maybe it would be better if they are crazy. But unfortunately, they are not crazy. They are quite clever. Yes. In the using the cleverness on the bad side. However, we hope that God will bring an end to them. These people...
Oh, yeah. The end is coming, folks.
Completely
I mean,
crazy.
when you say that, I mean, that can sound quite dangerous. You hope that God will bring an end to them. I guess you mean peacefully.
Of course.
Yeah.
You have to understand the concept of this red cow. Yes. This is a spiritual concept. Yes. You can do whatever you want. You can build a table. You can build a house looks like the Temple Mount. Yes. But you can't bring God in that. You can't bring him in.
Isn't that interesting? From a rabbi.
You can't make God to give his spiritual in the red cow. You can take 10 red cows, you can sacrifice, you can burn them, but God you can't bring in them. Yeah, this is crazy. It's like your child sitting down in Morrison on the car. There he has a Morrison car. Ham, I'm driving. Wow, I'm a fire engine. You're laughing. What are you laughing? I'm driving. You're laughing. Yeah, the same thing what they do with the red cow. Yes, I'm driving. I have a red cow. I'm building at the mountain, the Temple Mount. This is a joke. What's going on? You can bring God. If you want to bring God, there's own way. Turn your face to him. Follow him. Then you can hope that God will come to you. Then you will get connected to God. You will not bring God to you with red cows. You will building a nice building, much, much nicer than a Temple Mount.
Profound, isn't it? You have a rabbi speaking against Zionism and against even these people that are frothing at the mouth to sacrifice the cows and the idea that you can bring the Messiah by doing something. Of course, he has some good things to say, like, look, turn your face to God. How about you start with that? Which is very interesting because, again, if you understand, we'll talk about this towards the end of this because we're almost done. We have a couple more things to look at. But there is going to be a sequence of events. And there are now, where you have the Jewish identity as this one thing, of course, it's multiple things in the Jewish identity. It's getting fractured so that certain things can be taken out and the Jewish identity can be reformed. Zionism was part of the Jewish identity. Now, not a lot of the Jews weren't Zionists. That's an important point to make. As you can clearly tell now, it's out in the open. But Zionism is not Judaism. Doesn't mean that there aren't crossovers, but Zionism was part of the Jewish identity. Zionism is starting to be divorced from the Jewish identity. You're seeing that from the non-Jew side, like with all the things happening in the United States, and you're seeing it from the Jewish side as well. They're divorcing themselves from Zionism. It's time for Zionism to be thrown under the bus. And then you see even people such as this rabbi who are calling out and fighting against these other religious fanatics who think that we need to sacrifice these red cows to bring in the Messiah. So what's the point? The point is that now you're starting to see a fracture, and eventually people like this rabbi will be prime picking for the messianic movement to be converted, because they're going to realize, like, you know what, I just don't belong with this religion anymore. Why are they trying to sacrifice and build a temple? God is not, limited by physical things. And then they're going to be converted into the charismatic messianic movement. That's the phase that these things are going to go. The Messianics were created in order to bridge the gap between Christian nationalism and the Jewish community. All the Messianics are part of the NAR movement, the charismatic movement. They're coming to these various rallies, and they are the early adopters. They're the Judas goats that are going to bridge the gap between people that are starting to be sick of their Jewish identity and their Zionism and all this, Talmudic Judaism, and want a better relationship with God, and they're going to be bridging the gap with those people. And then pretty soon those other people will come along too, because there's other things that are going to happen with this third temple, which we'll talk about. But again, just hopefully you see these things. Oh, we have one more video. Oh gosh, this is a good one. This is a very good one. This is from Shadow of Ezra on Twitter. Former FBI Special Agent John D'Souza talks about Project Bluebeam and fake alien invasion. Quote, they're going to have Jesus in the sky. John D'Souza was an FBI agent for over 20 years and collector of the real-life X-Files. The mainstream media has stated that Project Bluebeam is a debunked conspiracy, but with the Vatican preparing guidelines for supernatural phenomenon, people have questions. Yes, they do. Let's take a look.
What I'm here to tell people is that when Project Bluebeam is used, again, it's not going to be by the United States. It's not going to be by national. It's going to be by global government. They're the ones who are going to use this stuff. And it's going to be not just a bunch of pretty holograms. They're going to be using it for religious figures. They're going to have Jesus in the sky, but it's not just going to be holograms. There's going to be voice-to-skull technology. It's also going to be used. They're going to be able to have these figures speak to every human being on the planet. Imagine the impact of that they're going to be able to see the figure and also hear the figure talking to them. It's amazing. I think that is that.
What does the Bible tell you in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2? That the Satan's going to use all power and signs and marvels to deceive people with the Great Delusion.
That is the particular reason why Jesus said in the Bible, my sheep hear my voice and they will recognize my voice. And I think that was an anticipation of when this operation goes forward. And it's going to go forward in conjunction also.
Well, really quick on that, I think he's mistaken on that. When they do the counterfeit, if they do such a thing, they're going to deceive people into thinking that they're hearing from Jesus. The elect know God's voice. Now, it's when Jesus says that, he's not talking about his physical voice. Do you see how the devil pulls your attention to the physical? Those who are not going to be believing and who are going to be swept into this great delusion because their names haven't been written in the book of life before the Lamb who was slain before the foundation of the world, those people will hear probably a very seductive voice that sounds exactly what you would expect, quote unquote, Jesus to sound like, and be deceived by it. Those who know their word, who know God's voice, because when you read the Bible, you hear his voice, you know who he is and what he says, will be able to, if such a thing were to happen, which again, be prepared. I don't know if it will, but be prepared. If it does happen, you must realize that people who study their word and who are clinging to the Lord will be able to filter through this deception, because you know if it is Christ speaking to you or not. And very likely, if this thing were to happen, the things that this apparition will say will be very contrary to the word of God. You will just have a gut feeling. You will know it's not Jesus. That's what Jesus meant, that you know my voice, meaning you know my character, you know how I speak. You know if it is me speaking. You can evaluate anybody by the word of God. And ultimately, that's what they're banking on, is that most people don't read the word of God.
With the great fake alien invasion, it's going to go forward with that. And who knows, it's going to be also a sweetener. It's going to be, instead of, we're going to have, maybe 10 or 20 UAPs that have incredible destructive capacity against our cities. But then with Project Bluebeam, they can make those appear like 2 or 3 or 400 UAPs. See, that's what they can do. And also these holograms, we call them holograms because that's the word that we know. But they're going to probably have the capacity for noise, for sounds, for solidity, temporary solidity as well. And then you can say, well, but then that's not a hologram. Well, yeah, it's probably going to be something that is several steps above a hologram as well. So these are the things that we're facing. And these things are going to be faced all at once. That's the reason why I try so hard.
So, of course, recently you have this thing from the Vatican, which I've covered in other places. Vatican preparing guidelines for apparitions, other supernatural phenomenon, which was in May, very recent. So all of these things are happening, which is very, very fascinating. And of course, again, if you understand the general course of history and everything I explained to you in the beginning of this with context and the trajectory of these things, it's very clear what's happening. We're headed towards the Great Delusion, folks. We're in it, but it's not yet past because they have to ride this third temple dialectic all the way through, and of course it has to lead somewhere. So, conclusion, let's put this all together now. There is a lot of dark being exposed to you, just like you had with the deep state, except much faster. You have all this violence and cruelty and injustice being exposed to you, and now it's becoming mainstream, very mainstream. Just think about it. 10 to 20 years ago, nobody would have heard a peep on any mainstream sources from politicians or mainstream news about the state of Israel. Not a peep. And you think this is the first time they're doing this kind of stuff? The answer is no. They've been doing this stuff since the 1950s with all the assaults on the Palestinian people. Of course, now it's all finally being exposed to you, controlled revelation, because the timing is right. Zionism had its purpose, and it has achieved its purpose. It helped maintain the USA petrodollar. It helped to solidify Christians into fanatics through Christian Zionism, plus the NAR, plus nationalism. It helped to anger and build resentment in Muslims through all of these injustices, so that there's a reason to go from dark to light, from chaos to peace, ordo ab chaos, order from chaos. And it built anger and resentment among Christians who are non-Zionists, people who are Christian conservatives and are awake to the Zionist control network and system and the propaganda, anti-Semitism and all this stuff that we have spoken about. It's built anger and resentment and even more polarized those people to get them ready for the flip of the world from communistic, atheistic left to nationalist, populist, church-state union right. Do you see how all these things integrate? And ultimately how it's perfect timing? How it's just perfect timing for them to finally flip everything into their desired outcome. It's truly profound how they've timed all this. It really is. It shows to you that it's not just people planning this. They are truly being guided by Satan and by principalities, because it's truly phenomenal. Today, Trump is the same figure that the Jews wanted in Napoleon, and then later through Hitler, that helped them basically build their state of Israel. And now Trump, who basically, moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. They minted a coin with him and Cyrus on the back, who basically built the first temple. Cyrus, or the Cyrus archetypical Messiah figure, is being fulfilled in Trump. And the Jews are all about it. So it's time for the Zionists to get divorced from the Jewish identity so that Trump can come in and bring in prosperity, unity, and of course, eventually conversion of the Jews. Christian Zionism has morphed from passive to active. 100 years ago, dispensationalism was very passive. It was just teaching the Jews need to go back to their homeland and there's going to be, a rapture and all this kind of stuff. That was very passive. And that has gotten more and more extremist over the last century to where now it's turned into active. They flipped the dispensationalists from passive to active into now we need to convert the Jews. It's this post-millennial end times idea of Christian nationalism that you need to do something for the Messiah to show up, which of course is the Antichrist spirit. Muslims are also sick and tired of Israel. They've reached a boiling point. Non-Zionist Christians are cheering on all this exposition of Zionism. So they're uniting with the far right, even though maybe they're not as extreme in their political views. Even Orthodox Jews and Messianic Jews and even liberal Jews are all coming together against Zionism. Zionism's time has come to an end and it's going to be destroyed. It's time for Theodor Herzl's promise to the Pope to be fulfilled. So, what is the timeline of events and what can we expect? I see about 8 phases of this happening, give or take. I don't know what the time for each of these phases are, but I can tell you that I expect these phases to happen within the next 10 years. So, and I've talked about this in my timeline to the end. I've talked about it in my Great Delusion series. So I've mentioned these types of things and we'll reiterate it here, specifically as it relates to the Jews and Zionism. Phase 1 is what we're in right now, which is expose Zionism. The goal of phase 1 is to polarize Christian nationalists even more with all this stuff like the Anti-Semitism Act and everything that's obviously polarizing people. The goal is also to bolster the NAR and their interpretation that the Jews need to be converted. Excuse me. And also to unite liberals and conservatives around a common good, which is Palestine. Again, the liberal Jews quitting Biden's administration and saying that their Jewish identity prompted them to support Palestine. That should tell you something. That is a major ideological shift, which is very fascinating. Now, phase 2 is going to be some sort of conflict that involves the Third Temple, war in the Middle East, something with a larger, broader climax of this conflict. They need to involve the Muslim world and fulfill their expectation of the end times, which again is linked to the Jesuit prophecy. It's linked to the Jewish prophecy. They're all intersecting in different ways, but they all intersect in this conflict in the Middle East. The current conflict has to be elevated into some sort of climax where it will involve the Muslim world. The Jews believe having a conflict is going to be a signal to bring their Messiah. So the fanatics who are all about the red cows and such and the Hanukkah, they're ready for it. The Third Temple dialectic is going to maximize. And obviously the Muslim world's going to unite against Israel. They'll probably declare a holy war. And that's going to fulfill this whole dispensationalist Gog and Magog surrounding Jerusalem thing. And they're going to think like, okay, this is it. Something's going to happen. Ultimately, the conflict in the Middle East is going to reach a climax for the Islamic world and the Zionist agenda to annihilate each other. And the people who remain, who are not extremists, are there to be integrated into the new thing. Do you see how that works? It's truly profound. If you understand momentum, this is why I call my podcast The Dance of Life, and why I have said many times that even while I was pursuing my own selfish interest in ballroom dancing, being a professional and traveling the country and competing, I had no interest in the Bible, folks. I didn't even read the Bible. Nevertheless, God was training me for something very specific and very unique. I have a lot of experience in movement. I have a lot of experience in understanding movement and understanding balance and how to keep your balance, what things are pulling you off balance, having awareness. And that awareness is what God used to train me to see these unseen things, these political things, these spiritual things that are happening. When you have an extreme, it is designed to get things moving. Zionism is an extreme. It's an extreme, obviously. Even the Jews tell you that. It's not middle of the road. It's a very extreme thing, but that's by design so that things can get movement in a direction. You don't get a lot of movement and vast societal change unless you're extreme. I'm not saying extreme is good, but extreme makes things happen. It moves things in a direction. Once they've gotten there, because they don't have a lot of time left, now it's time for Zionism to be destroyed so that the people who remain, who are not extreme, can be integrated. Some are going to get destroyed, some are going to get integrated into the new thing. With the peace and with the charismatic revival, possibly some supernatural signs. Who knows how it's going to go down? But ultimately, all of this is boiling down to some conflict. And that's going to be phase 3, is some sort of supernatural situation. Or world peace. Either way, it's going to be supernatural in the sense that it's going to be worked by all power and signs and wonders of Satan. Whether it's peace or whether it's the hologram technology we looked at, something is going to happen. If it's a hologram or some sort of apparition, it's going to lead to a charismatic revival. If it's world peace, the extremists like the Zionists and the jihadis, they're going to be destroyed. And the people who are in the middle will be integrated into some sort of peace deal, world peace, and they have a common good, the common ground. Just like the Jewish Jesuit was writing. We should strive for common peace, which of course is common good, which of course means subjection to the Catholic Church. Phase 4, after these situations happen, is the charismatic conversion. You have already in place things like Messianic Jews, who are basically Judas goats, who are going to build relationships with these people who are distancing themselves increasingly from the old Jewish narrative of the Zionist agenda. And the people who are their own, the Jews, the Messianic Jews who converted, are now there open arms saying, look, there's a better life for you here. And out of all the disillusionment of their old identity, the Jews will cross over into the charismatic movement, facilitated by the Judas goats of the Messianic movement, by the charismatic, by the NAR, by world peace. Islam is also going to be converted. Again, they use ecumenism, cultural pop stars, influencers, and politics, political shifts. All of these things are happening simultaneously, folks. The Bible has told you the truth thousands of years before it happened, and it's happening now. Now, eventually, again, I don't know how much time between each of these phases, but within the next 10 years, you're going to see this. Eventually, after the charismatic conversion, the Jews are finally converted, the Muslims are converted. You will also see Sunday laws being promoted throughout the world. This is happening in Europe, through the European Sunday Alliance, I believe. And of course, through the United States, through Project 2025, which I've covered, and all these other huge movements to Christianize America again. Of course, it's going to happen in the United States first, because the mission of the United States as the false prophet is designed to export the image of the beast, which is a representation of the Catholic papacy in the medieval Europe, which is this Christian nationalist power. It's designed to export this new thing to the rest of the world. And of course, the rest of the world is being prepped to receive it. There is a dark to light flip in all of these places: South America, Europe. China's getting bubbled up with the Vatican there. I've talked about all of these in my Dark to Light episodes. That's why I put them in the playlist. You can check them out for yourself. Canada. But there's a hard push towards Christianity, and with nationalism and Trump, and of course Trump will probably be back. We'll see how many shenanigans are going to happen until then. But Trump is poised to come back, despite all the stuff you see on the news about him being persecuted and all this stuff. Is just designed to make you want Trump more. The Pope will also likely pass away this year or the next year. He has to. He's getting old. He's frail, and it's perfect timing. And I've talked about this, but the Pope currently is a Jesuit. He's a liberal, and the next one will be very conservative. My guess, educated guess, is that he will be very conservative, because the current Pope is destroying everything. He's opening things so the other one can come and close them and integrate them and be hand in hand with a conservative leadership in the United States, just like Ronald Reagan and John Paul type of situation. They're going to be hand in hand to bring the image of the beast to the rest of the world. And of course, again, I've talked about this in all my episodes, but you'll also see the world needing to come onto a standard calendar. I see the same dialectic happening that happened in the Roman Empire with Constantine, where you had two calendars. You had the 8-day calendar and 7-day calendar. And that was like a dialectic. It was like, oh, well, let's just have a 7-day calendar. Let's restructure the week and make Sunday the first day. And that's been the week that we've had for a while, but a lot of the world also uses Sunday as the 7th day. Some Muslim countries have Saturday as the 7th day or the 6th day, I believe. So there's not universal agreement on the 7-day week, even though they use the planetary week, Sunday, Monday, all the 5 planets. They are not agreed universally throughout the world that Sunday is the first day. In some countries, Sunday is the 7th day. So that needs to also be something on your radar to see, because the point is the world needs to marvel after the beast and take his mark, which is Sunday rest. That will be enforced, but you can't do that if some people say Sunday is the 7th day and then Saturday is the 7th day. So that needs to be a standardization. And you're going to see that come to light as the image of the beast gets exported to the rest of the world. And of course, eventually, with these standardizations and Sunday laws and the shaping of culture, what you're going to see, phase 6, is a change in the Jewish community. You're going to see the Messianic Jews, who by now have been converted, most of them probably, and you're going to see Jesuit agents in this Messianic community that are going to start arguing for Sunday keeping. They're going to say that they've seen the new light of seeing that Sunday represents our relationship with Christ, that it's the resurrection, so, we should abandon all these Jewish old traditions and really see that the Sabbath is fulfilled in Christ and it's on Sunday now. You're going to see these types of arguments, which of course all of them are deceptive, but they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong, and I have a whole Sabbath series. Please get edified on this so that you are not deceived by the sweet talk and the deception that is coming on the horizon. Because if you don't have knowledge in this area, you will be very easily deceived. Currently, Messianic Jews who have been converted, but they're still Jewish in that sense, they use the Talmud Sabbath from evening to evening. However, again, the world will marvel after the beast and take its mark, meaning they have to come to the light, quote-unquote, false light, of Sunday worship and Sunday rest. So culture, once the political and the legislative is set in the culture and it becomes a norm, and you see this revival, and you see conversions, and you see Christian nationalism, and all these things really take the world, you're going to eventually see at some point, and this is an important marker, that the Messianics will start to argue for Sunday. Just look, if you think I'm crazy, all you have to look, I don't claim to be a prophet. I don't claim to be extra smart or anything. I'm just telling you, know your history. If you study your history, the things that I say are not improbable. In fact, they're actually very probable. How do I know that? I know because for the last 500 years, the Protestants have invaded the Jesuits have invaded Protestantism and infiltrated it through the art of war, through secret societies, through cultural influencers, through ecumenical influencers like Billy Graham, what's his name? The guy who started the Moral Majority. I always forget their name. Joel Osteen. So many, Rick Warren, all these guys are secret society Jesuit ops. And they're designed to play a part and just do it. And once they finish their part, then okay, we're done with you, or you can be part of the new thing if you want. But ultimately, they've played their part. Look at Benny Hinn. Benny Hinn is, you look at him, he just looks like just so washed up. But he played his part to create this charismatic word of faith system, which of course now ran its course, and the new thing has come up like Life Surge and the NAR and all these people who were influenced by Benny Hinn and his way of speaking and the charismatic movement. Of course, Benny Hinn was influenced by who? Catherine Coleman, who was a Jesuit operative. I document that in my Counterfeit Spirit episode. But what's the point? The point is that just the way they've done business as usual for the last 500 years, they're going to do it with the Messianics, and probably have already done it. I'm sure some of these Messianics are secret society members and Jesuit operatives, and they're going to use them, just like they did with the Protestants, as cultural spies and influencers to start flipping the Jews, after, they can't do everything at once, folks. They got to do everything. You see, everything is very meticulous. Very meticulous. Right now, the Jewish identity needs to be purified. We need to remove Zionism. Just put it over here, throw it away. We need to remove extremist Islamic ideology. We need to get these two destroying to one each other. And we need to take the people in the middle who are more neutral, and then we need to slowly shepherd them to conversion. That's going to be done through all the things I just mentioned. And so ultimately, once those people are converted, especially the Jews, the Muslims could care less. They're probably going to worship on Sunday automatically. But the Jews have their Sabbath, and that's a real thorn in the side for the beast, because as long as the Jews keep their Sabbath, you can't have a legal precedent to prosecute people who are keeping the Sabbath. Do you understand? As long as the Jews are the key. Do you get it? The Jews are the key for the beast. They are wedded to each other. The Jews are the key for the beast because the Jews are the main obstacle that needs to be overcome in order to legally prosecute people who are loyal to God and rest on the seventh day, which is what the Bible warns you about. So the Jews, that's a tricky one. We have to first divorce the Zionist thing that we caused because that was needed, but now it's not needed anymore. Then we have to do like a charismatic revival, probably with some false signs and wonders. Then we have to, phase 3 of that is we have to start infiltrating the Messianic movement and get the Messianics to say, no, we've seen the light about Sunday and the Eucharist and all these other things, right? So this is going to be happening in the next 10 years. Again, I don't know the time between these phases, but you will see the Messianics eventually argue for Sunday. And remember also this, remember another important point, not all the Jews who will convert, are going straight Messianic. That's another important point. As you will see mass conversions, the Jews, some of them will be Messianic, but a lot of them will probably just go into being Baptist or Orthodox or Catholic or whatever the new thing is before it all gets integrated. It's all going to be one thing in the end, so it doesn't matter where you go. Most of the conversions to Christianity will be to Sunday keeping orientations. You're going to have some that will go to Messianic through the Messianic route, but it doesn't matter. That route's going to get infiltrated and they're going to join with their brothers and sisters on Sunday. It's going to happen, folks. Look, don't call me crazy. Learn your history and realize these things, because once that happens, you have phase 7 and 8. Phase 7 is anti-Sabbath propaganda. Once the world and finally the Jews accept Sunday keeping and all of this culture has been shaped and, they've been, the final obstacle of the Jews has been overcome, now the beast can do what it really wants, which is to persecute Sabbath-keeping Christians. Another reason why the Jews need to be converted is the fact that Sabbath-keeping Christians will be helping other people learn the truth. And of course, the beast doesn't want you to know that. And there's a time where the elect will be sealed, and we don't know what that time is, but my inference is when the first bowl judgment drops, and that starts with the people who took the mark of the beast and worshipped its image, so they partook of this system. There's a time period between now and the first bowl judgment, whenever that happens in the next probably 10 years, where there are more elect that need to come to Christ. The beast doesn't want that, so they're going to create anti-Sabbath propaganda, meaning if you are helping people to learn the truth, you're telling people not to rest on Sunday, but actually Sabbath is on the seventh day, you're committing a crime. You're indulging people to break the law. And of course, you can be persecuted for that legally and be thrown in jail and inquired of and so on. If the Jews remained Messianics, just Messianics on Saturday with their Talmud Sabbath, the world cannot be forced to take the mark. Bible prophecy has to be fulfilled. Remember, it says everybody will have to have this choice, whether you're great or small, rich or poor, free or slave. The Jews have to be converted, and they have to come to accept the false light of Sunday as the Sabbath. The propaganda is going to start with people like Andrew Tate, Candace Owens, Russell Brand, Marie. Imagine all these voices in the wilderness now who you see on YouTube and TikTok. And they're so, passionate and like this, and they're telling you about that and this, and, various problems in culture, well, eventually all those problems are going to be erased. Eventually the liberals are going to be done with. The communist deep state globalist agenda is going to be done with. The Zionists are going to be destroyed. Everybody, the Jews are going to be converted. Everything's going to be, there's no more problems except you, my friend, my Sabbath-keeping Christian friend, except you. You're going to be the problem. Now, all those heads of the beast that are barking in different directions are just going to go whoop, laser focused on this last little group of people, stubborn rebels that are not only breaking the law, they're teaching other people to break the law. What are we going to do with these people? Well, no, let's hang them. No, let's put them in prison. Let's do this. Let's do that. That's what you're going to start seeing. You're going to start seeing anti-Sabbath propaganda. And eventually, phase 8, right before the first bowl judgment drops, is the digital inquisition. You're going to see an inquisition, and this time it's going to be digital in nature. You're going to see accusation, persecution of believers for breaking the law or advising other people to break the law. You're going to see things like the Noahide laws subsumed and modified through a Christian nationalist reality where, of course, Sunday is the Sabbath, and if you don't keep the Sabbath, you're breaking the law, and you might be executed for that. You're going to see converted Jews who support and argue for a Sunday Sabbath argue against you. You're going to see everybody arguing against you, so you need to be solid in the Word, folks. You need to be solid in the Lord, and so you need to, because if you're going to be alive during that time, then you must endure to the end. You must have strength, and that strength will be supernaturally given to you from the Lord. But nonetheless, people are going to be hunted down, imprisoned, interrogated. Look, what happened throughout history? The Inquisition, 100 years after Constantine's law passed for the Sunday law, people started getting accused of being Judaizers. Don't Judaize. Rest on Sunday, otherwise you're going to be shut out from Christ. And of course, if you're shut out from Christ, what happens? Well, you're treated as a heretic. You think that history is just meaningless? No, it's going to happen much more on a broad scale. The beast has already showed you its pattern in the past. That's why it doesn't want you looking at history. But if you look at history, you learn the truth. And you see these types of things throughout history. From Constantine through the Inquisition to the modern age, you're going to see a digital inquisition. Why do you think they're developing all this AI? Look at my episode, how the light will use the dark. I just recently released it. You will see how they're using all these things ultimately to build up the final system. The AI that's being developed right now is by design to be able to control and track behavior, so that when it comes to it, they can flip a switch and you have your Bitcoin crypto system and your digital ID and AI tracking your every move and everything that you have. And oops, we have somebody that told on you, which of course in this case is going to be the AI. The AI is going to tell on you. And you're a Judaizer. Don't be a Judaizer. This is your first strike. We're going to take away privileges for a week. And if you're on your second strike, we're going to throw you in prison. That kind of thing. So be ready, because at this point, when you see these things come to pass, again, this will probably happen in the next 10 years, my guess, rough guess, but I think it's a very good educated guess. Rejoice, because once phase 8 comes along and you see the digital inquisition, the first bowl judgment is going to drop very soon, because Jesus said that there would be elect left alive. If the days had not been shortened for the sake of the elect, nobody would have been left alive, because the devil would have killed everybody. But the mercy of God is that he has shortened the days so that when you see these things come to pass, rejoice and watch for the bowl judgments. The moment the bowl judgments start, there's not a lot of time to go. They are not designed for people to repent. They're designed to punish people. All the people who took the mark and rejected God and who basically treated God's people the way they did, they're going to be judged. And that's going to take not a long time, a month, 2 months, I really don't know. It's not going to be years, let's put it that way. So rejoice, because once you see these things happening, it means the time is very, very near. We are naturally conservative as Christians. It's important to remember that the devil will tempt you with the seduction of a conservative golden age at the end. Just like in the beginning with the Garden of Eden and the promise of success, let's put it that way, the Bible warns you throughout time that success, it's not that success is evil, but success can corrupt. And success has always been the devil's tool. He uses the dark to traumatize you so that you can be seduced by the counterfeit. That is the spirit of Antichrist. It's a dualistic thing. Antichrist means against Christ and in place of Christ. The against part is designed to be evil and bad and obvious, to push you into the in place of part. The counterfeit with its arms wide open. So, conclusion, if all of this is new to you, I know it can be a little scary, it can be overwhelming. Get edified with the sources that I listed at the beginning of this video. If you're a dispensationalist or a Christian Zionist and you're still watching, congratulations. I hope you've learned quite a bit, and I hope you've realized that you've been deceived. And there's no shame in admitting that. There really isn't. Get edified with the truth and move on. And thank God that he's opened your eyes. If you're on the Trump train or Christian nationalism or hardcore, into politics, you need to realize that you've also been deceived. The coming deception is going to fool a lot of people, and it's going to fool a lot of conservatives because it's going from dark to light. If you're a conservative and you're just a Christian, you're a conservative, and you know about all the evils of Zionism, go deeper. Go deeper in your study. Go deeper in your study of history. Go deeper in your study of Bible prophecy. Watch my End Time series. Don't settle for it's the Jews, mantra, because the Jews are not the ultimate enemy. The Bible warns you of a Christian counterfeit at the end of the age, a world bowing down to a Christian counterfeit. Satan, out of all of his satanic vehicles, chose the Catholic Church. Why? Because after the cross, he realized the only way he could do this thing is to impersonate and counterfeit Christ's work. Christ came, he created the church, the true church, and Satan says, well, I can't compete with paganism anymore, so I'm going to create a counterfeit. That's why he gave his power to the counterfeit. That is the vehicle by everything is getting integrated. So anyway, I hope this has been edifying. Stay sharp. Cling to the Word, cling to the Lord, study every day. Rejoice because there isn't that much time left, and we will see Christ very soon.